In Nuseirat Refugee Camp 5 in central Gaza, this is the aftermath of a weekend raid to rescue 4 Israeli hostages. The rubble next door is what remains of the apartment building where some of the hostages were held. On Saturday, Israeli special forces arrived at Abdullah Juda's doorstep.
اللي انا بطلع بقول لقيتهم في وجهي بينزلوا من الشحن وشيء بحط سلم على البلكونه وماسكين زي الحديده هاي اللي بيكسروا فيها الباب تبعت الافلام الامريكيه.
In a rare daytime raid, the squad shot its way into the building and in one apartment found 3 Israelis who'd been abducted from a music festival on October 7. Almog Mir Jan, Andrei Kozlov and Shlomi Ziv. In a nearby apartment, Abdullah Juda is sheltering from the gunfight.
كنا ماخذين الارض يمكن ساعه الا ربع ما وقف الطخ ولا ثاني.
Another squad rescued Noah Agamani. For many, the terrified face of October 7, filmed as she and her boyfriend were dragged into Gaza. As the hostages were extracted, Israel covered the withdrawal with airstrikes.
كان كثير شهداء في الشارع والناس بتجري زي ليوم القيامة. شيء مرعب.
Anas Alian had been on the floor above his family's apartment. He ran downstairs to carnage.
جيت أهلي كلهم مرميين وأطفال وأهلي وأولاد أخوي وأولادنا كلهم عليهم دم. لقيت أمي مرمية، أخوي لقيته كله دم، كله شظايا مش عارف إيش يسوي فيه.
They survived. Many others did not. Gaza health authorities say at least 274 people were killed. Israel says it's more like 100. Either way, this was a catastrophe for the people of Nuseirat, who say they had no idea hostages were being held here.
مجموعة كثير من السكان هم سكان يعني هم مقاومة لا شيء هم سكان من المدنيين كلهم استشهدوا لحتى الآن تطلع أهلنا وجيراننا وحبايبنا كلهم بيحتفظوا عليهم شهداء كلهم.
Inside Israel, the return of 4 hostages has lifted the national mood.
I was very happy. I know all the families, these are people that are like my family. I know Almog's mother, Almog Zanko, Andrei's mother, the wife of Shlomi, Noah's father and aunt and everything. I know them.
In 8 months of war, just 7 of 251 hostages had been rescued in military operations. 116 people remain unaccounted for, including Myrav Leshem Gonen's daughter, Romi.
It was a mixed feeling because I was jealous. I wanted that it will be also my daughter, not instead of any of them, but I want my daughter to go out also. So I envied them. I was jealous, really.
After the displacement of around 1.7 million people, the world's gaze had slipped from the hostages. Laura Blumenfeld is a Middle East expert with Johns Hopkins University.
We kind of forgot about what it felt like to have people released. Since November, we haven't had any movement. The second thing is it gave Israel a little bit of wind at their back, which is what they need, I think, to make those concessions. It helps them save face if they do have to cede ground.
Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken.
Antony Blinken is in the Middle East this week, his 8th visit to try to forge a ceasefire deal between Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas's leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, 2 men who've been unwilling to compromise.
Both of them are speaking in absolutist terms. For Sinwar, it is a permanent ceasefire, and for Netanyahu, it's total victory. The problem here is that negotiations are typically a pain-gain trade-off, but here the pain for these 2 leaders is pain of death. For Netanyahu, it's political death, and for Sinwar, it's literal. That just makes it a lot harder.
Former General Benny Gantz finally quit Israel's war cabinet this week, saying Mr Netanyahu has no plan to end the war.
החלטות אסטרטגיות גורליות נתקלות בהססנות ודחיינות משיקולים פוליטיים.
Netanyahu is facing the greatest military challenge that Israel has faced in its history, with the least military credentials in his cabinet. Gantz leaving definitely lowers his sense of international legitimacy abroad and credibility at home.
For the families of hostages, Netanyahu's political problems are irrelevant. There's just one goal. Mirav Leshem-Gonen says it's impossible to know whether the hostage rescue will jeopardise her daughter's release or speed it up.
I think that everything is a speculation because we don't really know what this kind of operations will really do to the negotiations. It can help the negotiations since Hamas will see that we are not sitting and waiting. We are working on getting them out, and we are intend to do that in any means. If not in agreement, then we will do it in force because this is what we have.
On Monday, the UN Security Council endorsed plans for a ceasefire in the Middle East for the first time. Drafted by the US, the resolution would end hostilities in 3 phases. Israel has not yet publicly accepted the proposal, while Hamas has submitted its response to Qatari mediators. Aaron David Miller is a Middle East analyst and former US negotiator who served as an advisor to Republican and Democratic Secretaries of State. I spoke to him earlier. Aaron David Miller, the UN Security Council resolution certainly seems to offer the most hopeful prospects for some immediate humanitarian relief and a permanent ceasefire. What's changed for Israel and Hamas to even get us to this point?
You know, I think it's, I know the international community, there's enormous interest in how the international community is going to intercede in an effort to moderate and ultimately end this horrific war. But the reality is, one thing I've learned from decades of negotiation, that the Middle East is littered with the remains of great powers who believe wrongly they can impose their will on smaller ones. This conflict has been shaped by 2 combatants, both of whom believe this is a matter of vital national interest. And in such a conflict, it's extremely difficult for external parties, the G7, the UN, even the US, Israel's closest ally, to be able and or be willing to exert the kind of influence to shape an ending. And that's why we find ourselves 9 months next month into this war at a significant impasse. Right now, I see only one pathway out, and that isn't on a comprehensive ceasefire. I think that's probably unlikely. It's a phase 1, limited hostage exchange for Palestinian prisoners, temporary ceasefire 6 weeks, which would enable humanitarian assistance for the first time since since the Israeli ground campaign, October 27, to surge into Gaza proper. It's not a perfect ending to this, for sure, but it's something that the international community, the US in particular, can build on. I just don't see a Hamas or the Netanyahu government accepting a comprehensive plan in 3 phases to end the war.
But both sides have made generally positive noises about the resolution. Have any events, particularly last week's raid in which 4 Israeli hostages were rescued but 274 Palestinians killed, affected the dynamics on Gaza, or at least the rhetoric from the 2 sides?
I mean, I really don't when it comes down to the core issues. That is to say, what does Hamas want? The Wall Street Journal had carried a fascinating piece today on supposed messages of Yahya Sinwar, the architect of the October 7 attacks, how he's looking at this. He thinks he's winning. He's trading time, tunnels, and hostages for what he wants, which is a comprehensive ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and security and safety for his family and the senior leadership of Hamas, and a role for Hamas in the post-conflict environment. I think there's a consensus in Israel that it's not just a question of creating a situation where Hamas cannot do October 7 again, which they vowed to do over and over and over again. It's creating a new post-Hamas reality in Gaza. And I don't think, frankly, that is, I can't imagine a set of circumstances in which Hamas will not survive in some form, either as an insurgency or through intimidation and co-optation, given the weakness of the Palestinian Authority, they plan to play a significant role in Gaza. So those objectives are mutually irreconcilable. And I don't see any way around that.
How does this resolution affect the internal politics in Israel, and particularly the intense pressures faced by Benjamin Netanyahu? What does it do to Israel's interests in negotiating?
The resolution is framed around a set of ideas which, from the beginning, are Israeli ideas. And I find myself listening as Israel is sort of nudged and urged to accept the ideas that it crafted. So the onus of responsibility right now in terms of the sequence is clearly on Hamas. Hamas needs to come back with either a clean yes, which is unlikely, or a yes, but that is reasonable and would become a basis for further negotiations. If that happens, then you go to the next step. Then the proposal would be submitted to the full Israeli cabinet. And at that point, you probably would have a political crisis because two parties, two of the most extreme radical Zionist parties, have basically said that they'll leave the government. But even that has an answer. So you need a decision point. And right now, I don't see one.
The party that seems to be under the most time pressure here on your analysis is the United States. What are the prospects of the Americans actually being prepared to escalate the pressure on Israel?
You know, we're next month is the 9th month of this war. And the United States is yet to impose a single cost or consequence on Israel that normal humans like you and I would consider sustained and real pressure. There are reasons for that. I think the administration has believed from the beginning the only way to de-escalate this war and eventually end it is through a negotiated deal between Israel and Hamas. And for that, you need two yeses. One from Hamas, over which the administration has zero influence, and one from Israel. So calling out Benjamin Netanyahu, breaking with this Israeli government in a sustained political crisis that would last more than a week, 2 weeks, go on for month after month, I think the administration ruled it out. So persona politics and the policy, I think, all combined to create a situation. I use the term passive aggressive. I think the administration is angry, frustrated, to say the least, with the prime minister's behavior, but it is not willing to translate that anger, that frustration into something that, again, people would recognize as a sustained break. So, I mean, it can be done, but I think the administration is very reluctant. Almost 9 months into this war, I rest my case.
Well, it's a very bleak assessment, but Aaron David Miller, thank you so much for sharing it with us tonight.
I wish I had better news and an assessment as well. Honesty and clarity. If you want to fix the world, you really have to understand first the way it is.